At my daughter's wedding, the ocean breeze carried music and lantern light across 200 guests. But instead of vows and joy, she stood before me, demanding the deed to my $8 million seaside inn. When I refused, her hand tightened around a wine glass, and in a flash of fury, she hurled it straight at me, shattering it across my mother's heirloom cloth. Gasps silenced the crowd. Phones captured every moment. I didn't shout, I didn't cry. I walked away, dialed one number, and minutes later, the smile she wore vanished in an instant. I sat in my office, overlooking the shoreline, the familiar hum of the ocean slipping through the half-open window. Key West had its way of making everything look calm, as if time slowed to the rhythm of the waves. But calm was an illusion. I knew it the way I knew the lines etched across my face, permanent, undeniable, carved by storms I had already weathered. My hand drifted almost unconsciously to the silver ring on my finger. The metal was cool against my skin, worn smooth in places, scratched in others. It wasn't just jewelry. It was the only promise that had lasted. Thomas gave it to me on our wedding day, and though he had been gone for more than a decade, the ring had never left my hand. "You're still here with me, Thomas," I whispered in my mind. "This ring may be scratched, but it's unbroken, just like me." Outside, the inn stood tall and graceful, its glass walls glowing with lantern light, balconies facing the horizon where the sky kissed the water. Guests thought of it as a paradise, but to me, it was bone and blood, the very proof of a life Thomas and I had built brick by brick, dream by dream. Every detail spoke of us, the polished wood floors, the seashell lamps, the hand-stitched curtains. It wasn't just a business. It was my heart. And now, standing at the edge of my daughter's wedding, I realized how close I was to losing it all, not to strangers, but to the very girl I had carried in my arms. Brianna had always been bright, quick to charm, but her hunger for more had no bottom. I had paid her tuition, covered her debts, funded her startups that failed before they began, but no matter what I gave, it was never enough. Gratitude never took root in her. And Tyler, her soon-to-be husband, only fueled her ambition. He had a slick smile, the kind of man who saw profit in every corner of the earth. He had no love for my inn. He saw it as land, numbers, leverage. He saw me as nothing but an obstacle. The confrontation at the front desk days earlier replayed in my mind. Brianna standing there in her designer heels, looking down on me like I was a maid, telling me I should let her and Tyler take over, telling me I was too sentimental to see the inn's true potential. Her words cut deeper than she realized. My throat had tightened as I reminded her this place wasn't just a building, it was the legacy her father and I created with our bare hands. She had smirked, unimpressed, already plotting with Tyler behind my back. And then I saw it with my own eyes, Tyler leading men in suits across the property, clipboard in hand, calculating every inch of what they wanted to destroy. And later, the email he hadn't meant to send me, a blueprint of their plans to bulldoze the inn into oblivion and raise steel towers in its place. My hands had shaken when I read the note at the bottom. She should retire and let us handle this. Now, as Brianna's glass shattered across the tablecloth at her own wedding, every hidden betrayal burned to the surface. My daughter wasn't just greedy. She was ready to erase me, erase Thomas, erase everything we had built. And she thought she could humiliate me into giving it all away. But she had underestimated me. I dialed a number I hadn't used in years. My lawyer answered, his voice steady as ever, and I gave him the signal. The papers we had prepared weeks ago were already filed, protections locked in place. The inn was no longer in Brianna's reach, no matter what she demanded. I hung up, walked back into the crowd with my head high, and watched as confusion flickered across her face. She didn't know yet, but she was about to learn. The music at the reception had slowed, the crowd buzzing with whispers about the scene they had just witnessed. Some guests avoided my eyes, uncomfortable with the family drama, while others looked at me with quiet sympathy. Tyler leaned close to Brianna, whispering something sharp in her ear, his jaw tight with anger. I knew he was telling her to stay composed, to keep smiling for the cameras. But her rage boiled beneath the surface. Ramona, my oldest friend, appeared at my side, her presence grounding me. She slipped her arm through mine and whispered, "Don't let her break you. You're stronger than she knows." I nodded, though inside my chest, grief tangled with fury. Brianna was my child, my only daughter, yet she was trying to strip me of the last piece of Thomas the First had left. I wasn't just fighting for property. I was fighting for my life's work, for my husband's memory, for my own dignity. The night pressed on, the air thick with champagne and tension. Brianna danced, laughed too loudly, trying to claw back the spotlight, but I saw the cracks. Tyler's eyes kept darting to me, suspicion clear in his gaze. He knew I wasn't as helpless as Brianna believed. And when the servers brought out the cake, I realized this wedding wasn't the celebration I had once prayed it would be. It was war disguised in lace and lantern light. And I was ready to fight. The ocean roared louder as the night deepened, as though the sea itself sensed the storm brewing inside me. Guests clinked glasses, the band played soft jazz, and laughter echoed under the lanterns, but beneath it all was a tension no one could ignore. My daughter had thrown a wine glass at me in front of 200 people, demanding the deed to the inn. She had humiliated me without hesitation, and now she thought she had won. But she had no idea that the ground she was standing on had already slipped from beneath her feet. I had spent weeks preparing for this moment, ever since I saw Tyler with those men, ever since the email landed in my inbox. I had already transferred the inn's ownership into a trust under my control, with ironclad clauses that no one could challenge. Brianna believed she could manipulate me like she always had, but this time, I was no longer her safety net. I was her reckoning. I moved through the reception with practiced calm, smiling politely at guests who tried to ignore the tension in the air. I poured myself a glass of champagne, the bubbles rising fast, catching the light like tiny sparks. Across the courtyard, Brianna's laughter was shrill, forced, her eyes starting to meet every few moments. Tyler leaned close to her, whispering furiously, but she shook him off with a toss of her hair. She was still convinced she could bend me. She had no idea the battle had already been lost. As the band paused, the microphone was passed to me. The guests applauded, expecting the usual toast, words of love for my daughter and her new husband. I stepped forward, the cool night breeze catching my hair, and lifted the glass. Brianna smirked, expecting me to grovel, to smooth over her public outburst with some flowery speech. Instead, I looked her straight in the eye. "I built this inn with my husband, Thomas," I began, my voice carrying across the silent crowd. "We poured our hearts into these walls, not for profit, not for vanity, but for family. And family is meant to protect one another, not destroy." The guests shifted, sensing the sharp edge in my words. Tyler's smile faltered. Brianna's smirk wavered. I continued, my tone calm but unshakable. "Some of you may have heard my daughter's demands tonight. She wanted me to hand over the deed to this inn, the very place she was married in. She thought I would cave, as I have so many times before. But tonight, something changes." Gasps rippled through the audience. Phones rose discreetly, recording every word. This inn is no longer hers to covet. It is no longer vulnerable to her schemes or her husband's greed. It belongs to a trust, bound to me and to the memory of the man who built it with me. No one can touch it, not now, not ever. And if anyone tries, they will find themselves crushed under the weight of the law. Brianna shot to her feet, her cheeks burning crimson, her voice sharp and shrill. "Mom, what are you doing? You're embarrassing me in front of everyone." "No, Brianna," I said, my voice cutting through hers. "You embarrassed yourself when you threw a glass at your own mother, when you tried to steal what you didn't earn, when you decided money meant more than blood." The silence was deafening. Tyler tugged at Brianna's arm, hissing for her to sit down, but she jerked free. Her eyes were wild now, desperation breaking through her arrogance. "You can't do this. You can't lock me out. I'm your daughter." I set down my glass, my hands steady. Being my daughter was supposed to mean something. It was supposed to mean love, trust, respect. But you turned it into entitlement, greed, and betrayal. You've mistaken my forgiveness for weakness for too long. That ends tonight. The crowd erupted in whispers, some openly staring, others shaking their heads. Ramona sat near the front, her gaze fierce, pride shining in her eyes. Tyler's face had gone pale, his confident facade cracking under the weight of reality. Brianna tried one last desperate play, tears brimming as she clasped her hands together. Please, Mom. I just wanted us to be closer. I wanted to honor Dad's legacy. Don't shut me out. Her performance might have fooled the crowd, but not me. I had seen her lies too many times. My chest ached with the weight of loss, but I knew I had to stand firm. If you wanted to honor your father's legacy, you would have protected this inn, not plotted to destroy it. If you wanted closeness, you wouldn't have treated me like an obstacle. You don't want family, Brianna. You want control. And you'll have neither. Her tears froze on her cheeks, her lips parting in shock. She wasn't used to hearing no from me. Not in public, not in private. But this was no longer the story of a weak mother giving in to her daughter's tantrums. This was the story of a woman reclaiming her power. I walked away from the microphone, the applause that followed surprising even me. Guests clapped hesitantly at first, then louder, some rising to their feet. They weren't just applauding my speech, they were applauding the truth, the courage to finally say what had been unsaid for years. Brianna crumbled into her chair, her mascara streaking down her face, while Tyler leaned back, his jaw clenched, already calculating his next move. But it wouldn't matter. Their plans were finished. The inn was untouchable. Later that night, as the guests began to leave and the lanterns flickered low, I stood at the balcony overlooking the sea. The waves crashed steady against the shore, eternal and unyielding, just like my resolve. Ramona joined me, slipping a hand into mine. You did it, she said softly. I had to, I replied, my eyes on the horizon. For Thomas. For myself. Even for Brianna. Maybe now she'll finally learn that love can't be bought and respect can't be stolen. The ocean wind carried away the echoes of the evening, the gasps, the applause, the sound of glass shattering. My daughter had tried to take everything from me. But in the end, I had taken back something far more valuable. My strength. My peace. My legacy. And this time, I wouldn't let anyone steal it again.